Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the hottest show north of Limpopo, south of Sahara. This is Afya 360. First time we are shooting a podcast, and we are here for authentic conversations. And we want to pivot you for a better life where you will balance between public victories and private victories, for you to be a private success and a public success. And of course, everything in Afya 360 is looked at three lenses. We are keen on your mental health, your social health, and your physical health. And generally, we shall be delving into men's health and women's health and community health, because we need social capital for us to survive in this world that is highly competitive. So in today's episode, I want to shed a spotlight on the double-edged sword, and this is competition. This is like fire and fuel. And when you combine fire and fuel, then you blaze up the place. We are in a constantly active environment. We are ever getting notifications on our phones. We are always distracted. There is a lot that is going on in our lives, and everyone and everything is competing for your time. And hence, we are here to unpack what is healthy competition and what is unhealthy competition. Should you be competing against yourself or your neighbors? So healthy competition is demonstrated when you are building and growing as an individual or as a family or as a set of people. However, unhealthy competition is characterized by toxicity and nerve-wracking and resentment, bitter feelings, raising adrenaline and cortisol, which lead to ill mental health. So on the 10th of October this year, we shall be celebrating the World Mental Health Day. And mental health has reared itself into the social media spaces because we are all candidates of mental health illnesses, thanks to COVID-19, which afforded us the privilege of understanding that the health system had forgotten that health is all about the body, but we had forgotten that health is also about mental health. So we want to look at how does competition fuel mental health, wellness, or illness. I want to start up by a story. And once upon a time when I was growing up, and actually I'd started even working my first year of work when I joined the civil service in this country, I thought I would be this athlete. I wanted to be a sprinter. I always love sports. And so I went for the IAAF trials in Kisumu, Moi Stadium. And believe you me, I was donned in proper attire, just like Usain Bolt would do, and I was even aping his confidence gates, and I was there on the starting line showing the crowd and the fan base that is the guy you need to watch. You need to see how Ken is going to sprint. And interestingly, I was fairly taller and well built than the other guys, and everybody had this feeling that guy is going to ace it. And I did not know who I was competing with. So I entered into the race, and the referee shot the gun. On your marks, get set, go. And I still remember the crackling noise of the trainers and the spikes on the track, because those men left me by one step, and I was running after my life like never before. And getting to the finishing line, we did not know who had won. And of course, they have to announce who are the winners. I went to check the profile of the people who won or lost. Guess what? I was the last one. I lost. Out of the 8 people, I was number 8. And I went ahead to check, who are these guys? And I realized I was the only civilian competing. I was competing with men who work for the Army and Navy. But little did I know when I was registering for that race. But again, that's what competition is all about. Sometimes we enter into races where you do not know the stakes, or you do not know who are you competing with. And another fairly good example is when you hit the gym and you're there lifting the weights, and all of a sudden there's someone next to you who is deadlifting 200 kilograms. And I was there, doing squats of 100 kilograms, and I thought I was doing so well. But there's a guy who has doubled my weight and he's deadlifting it. You need to be there to lift that weight. And you know what happens in the gym? You all of a sudden feel this urge to add more plates. And yet your fitness goals are very different. So as human beings, we are wired to compete. You want to get better than your neighbor. I do not know where this started. And of course, competition brings very good energy. If you look at sports, if you look at how we run our lives, there's very good banter. For example, last time when Kenya was playing against the local African teams, we had a lot of banter between Tanzania and Kenya. You remember? Yeah, we had a lot of banter. And I do not want to share the details of that, but there was a lot of excitement and we became patriotic. And I would say that's good banter, because Kenya and Tanzania right now, because we did not make it to the finals, we are now going to work harder to make it to the next CHAN. So that is good competition, that is healthy. But the minute it becomes unhealthy or toxic, when you cross over the line and feel resentful, feel jealous and bitter, now right there mental health checks in. And you know, when you are overly competitive, you are on high adrenaline and you're on high cortisol, and those are hormones that charge you into being very active, and sometimes you're just running a wild goose chase. We are in the rat race. If you look at the Joneses and the Smiths, we are competing to get ahead of each other on many fronts. So in this podcast, we are going to narrow down to a few examples, models of competition which are healthy and border being unhealthy, and then we can see how to pivot. So to my first point, I want to talk about academic competition. As Kenyans, we have been set up to compete. If you look at the 844 system, how many of us remember that in class 8, I remember in class 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, we were being organized in class to sit according to performance. Like number 1 would sit at the front, and number 2, number 3, number 4, number last will sit at the back of the class. And then you need to ask yourself, who should actually sit at the front of the class? Isn't it the one who is not doing so well? But the system wired us to believe that you need to sit at the front because you're number 1. So the system has set us to propel those who are doing well and to harm those who are not doing so well, if you ask me. And moving to high school, I remember my high school, we all had names that were put on the notice board, and you could see who was number 1 and who was number 295, and everybody would start profiling people based on where they came from, and we are already set up into a competitive mood. And if you look at the 844 system, and I remember Kalamashaka once rapped 8 minus 4 minus 4 is equals to 0. Thanks to Fred Matiang'i and the entire government team for bringing in the CBC system, which is making us not put a lot of premium on education, but realize you can actually be an artist, you could be a sportsman. But our parents, back in the day when I was growing up, they told us you need to do well in school. So many vijana muongeze pia bidii, mwisho wa kusoma mtapata kazi nzuri sana. That was the mantra. But now look at the employment opportunities. Then you ask yourself, why were we being pitted into this academic competition? When you go home, if you remember, the first thing your uncles ask you, what number were you in class? And then the cousins will be asked the same question. And then you end up having competition within your family. So academic competition pits you against your classmates because you are seated with number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4, number 5, number 6. They want to be number 1. And we would celebrate people based on performance and not celebrate the unique wholesomeness of a person. So I think the education system has set us on a competitive trajectory, and this behavior has led to some people committing suicide. You've seen it on the tabloids, on the newspapers. 844 kids, either at class 8 or Form 4, they are told you need to repeat 2 or 3 times so that you can hit the right grade to go to Form 1, or hit the right grade to go to campus and do that course. Yes, that science course, because we never believed that arts would do anything to you. And right now the artists are actually laughing all the way to the bank. So I think we need to pivot as a nation and ask ourselves, when shall we put the line and stop this competitive spirit when it gets toxic? Because when people attempt suicide, then that is toxic competition. So the academic competition has also led to cheating. Remember the cheating cases we saw over 844. Some counties were cheating. Some schools were cheating. Collusion between teachers and students and parents to cheat because they want to get ahead at all costs. And a zero-sum game is not healthy competition. But because of the environment, the social systems that have raised us, we have embraced competition. And this academic competition has not done as good. And I like that in 2014, the Ministry of Education dropped down the competition, the ranking of schools, and now we are looking at schools for who they are. Where my kids go to school, we do not rank the kids from number 1 to number 20 or 50. We want to appreciate them the way they are. And I think that is the spirit of the CBC, the competency-based curriculum, which we welcome. Despite the many teething problems, one thing I like, we are moving away from academic competition to embracing a human being for who they are. Probably you just need to be a Tergat, a Kipchoge, Catherine Dereba, a Rudisha. You never know who you'll be. So urge your kids to be wholesome. And the academic competition then takes me to the next set of competition, which is also very familiar. We call it the workplace competition. Because we were set up by the education system to be very competitive. You get to the workplace, and all of a sudden, you go to the boardroom, and people are discussing ideas, and you do not want to appreciate that your colleague has actually given a very good point. Probably your boss has given you a very good suggestion, or your direct report has come up with an innovation that you as a boss, you need to propel and celebrate this colleague in the presence of other people. So we are constantly in attention in the workplace, and very few people who are magnanimous to forgive and to appreciate their fellow colleagues who are doing well. There is a lot of space for all of us up there. So the more you gatekeep and deny people promotion or deny people growth or tell your direct reports that you cannot promote them or not telling your boss, that's very strategic. I really like the way you're channeling this discussion. I really like your vision and the way you are leading this organization or leading this department. We might not do it the way we should. We might not move the needle from system strengthening and building industries in our country. So the workplace can also get toxic if we're not careful. Of course, when departments are having banter, especially at team building sessions, it's great to have that banter and enjoy those mind games and team building games. And also when you get the boardroom, you can also have that nice competition of ideas and having connections and networking. But the minute it's about undercutting one another, or the minute you get to pull down your colleague, or not embrace your direct reports, or not appreciate your own boss, then it gets toxic. So it's high time we ask ourselves, how does that happen? And probably we were set up by our academic situation. And then this competition goes all the way to the office and the corporate ladder. And people want to get ahead of each other. People want to step on toes of one another. People do not want to respect each other because you want to get ahead of the other person. And yet we are better off when we move forward as a collective. I would like to move on to the next set of competition, and this is between the Joneses and the Speeds. In the neighborhood, we have neighborly competition, or competition amongst neighbors, where I park a Range Rover next to the house and you all of a sudden feel you need to be driving a similar car. And you do not know why people are in so much tension, and neighbors cannot just say hi to one another. And before I say hi to you, you need to wait for me to say hi to you. I think we need to embrace one another and increase our social capital. In the city, we do not say hi to each other unless I have parked next to you or I've blocked your gate. And Our social capital is dwindling. We no longer are what our forefathers and foremothers taught us, that you need to be a caretaker of your neighbor. You need to love your neighbor as yourself, we were taught. So when you find your neighbor is doing so well, whether in the village or in the city, it will be good to start a conversation and tell them, hey, I saw your new Mercedes Benz. Where did you buy it from? And you have banter around that car. Or probably you are in a community where your kids are going to play together in a football match, or they are going to play together in a rugby game, and you happen to see that your neighbor's child is doing so well. Why can't you just appreciate that child and tell that parent, I love your parenting skills. I like your commitment in athletics or swimming or football. I think we have something to learn from you, as opposed to, oh, what are they doing? I also need to do that. So we need to choose our race and appreciate that we are not in the same race. You are not competing with your neighbor. You need to embrace your neighbor, whether he has a Vitz, whether he has a border, whether he has a bicycle, whether he is on Route 11 and you are riding top of the range. You need to connect. So we need to shun competition between neighbors and breed social capital, invite one another for lunch, and appreciate the good that everybody has. So there's another type of competition that I've seen that I want to talk about, and this is sibling rivalry. As parents, me being one, sometimes you want to motivate your child with a sweet and a toy. When you do well in school, I'm going to buy you a chocolate, or I'll buy you chips and soda, which is not the thing FFP stands for. We want to appreciate kids with nuts and bananas and healthy foods, as opposed to setting our kids on a trajectory for obesity in the future. A topic for another day. So we incentivize our kids based on performance. If you do well in this subject, if you do well, if you get ahead, if you are prepared to go to church or school on time, I am going to incentivize you with something. And then they end up competing against each other. And I've seen my kids competing against one another because they want to please me. And sometimes as parents, unconsciously, we set up our kids for competition, and that competition transcends from the toys and the sweets and the chocolates in the car to competition when they're bringing up their own children. And they will be looking at, did your son, did your cousin get a better job? Do they have a better car? Do they have a better home? The Smiths and Joneses conversation continues from sibling rivalry to families, and woe unto you if you come from a polygamist family, where the children of the first wife, the second wife, and the third wife are all competing for jobs and for recognition and for cars and houses. We are subconsciously pitted against one another without knowing. Of course, the good Bible tells us of the story between Abraham and Sarah, and Sarah is the one who told the nanny to get a baby with Abraham, and little did she know that they were to be put on a trajectory of competition and jealousy, and it ended up being very messy. One had to leave the house. So I think men and women, you may need to just stick to monogamy if you want to reduce competition within your life. But for those of us who are in polygamous environments, you need to be very emotionally aware that there's this competition between the first, the second, and the third house. And by the way, my grandfather was a polygamist. He had 3 wives. My dad has one. I think he learned he cannot handle what his dad did. So my grandfather tried very much to hold our extended family together, because I come from Nyanza, where we have traditionally accepted polygamist situations or formations. And I have seen competition breeding amongst the siblings of one household against the other over things like inheritance. And this is something very common in Africa. And I want to speak about this in this podcast because you want to be authentic. And I want to charge us to say, since you're already a child of the first wife, second wife, or third wife, start by appreciating the household of the first wife, the second wife, the third house. Have get-togethers, have mbuzi, Appreciate one another. Say, you came before me, but we are born of the same. Get a leaf from Senator Obama, who became President Obama. When he came to Kenya, his step-grandmother, step-family, invited him and hosted him so well because he was looking for his roots. So as much as you might be from a polygamy family, you can actually embrace those people and they can be your family. You can make lemonade from your lemon. Let us shun this competition over inheritance and land and things that do not matter when it comes to relationships. So we need to reduce that competition. It is a very interesting type of competition, very closely related to the sibling rivalry, which we need to be incentivizing who has shown the most love to his neighbor. That's the person we want to incentivize. And nowadays I'm telling my kids, if you guys unite, if you remind your brother or sister to do well in school or to be prepared, then I reward you. So I am rewarding collective responsibility. So that is how we can kill sibling rivalry. Of course, competition has got its energy, but when it crosses the line and kids cannot be brother and sister, then there's a problem. Because some, as you have seen in local media, some cannot even share the wealth that have been left by their parents. So I want to move forward to the next type of competition, which I think is relatable to some of us on this podcast. And this is the spousal competition. Competition between a husband and a wife. You know, one of these fine days I was having a discussion with my wife and we were driving down Uhuru Highway and we wanted to go to Nakuru, and she told me, you might need to use the bypass, and I insisted I need to use the highway because I think the highway is faster. And when we were on the highway, it was so clear, but after passing the roundabout, I found bumper to bumper traffic jam. I looked at my wife on the side and I think sheepishly she was laughing inside of her heart. I think, I told you so, but she could not say it because, you know, she wants to take care of my ego. And we ended up having banter about it. I did not, you know, make a big deal out of it. So that is healthy banter. That is healthy competition. Competition of ideas between a man and a woman. However, it is not the best competition between a spouse and another spouse, because most of the time you need to be pulling from the same front. If one of you has gone ahead to take higher education, you need to celebrate one another. If your wife is making more money, you need to be celebrating her instead of thinking, how can I make more money than her? So you should move forward as a collective. And the same way we look at organizations, probably that's the same way we need to look at our families. When we tell organizations to embrace collaboration over competition, we also need to tell our spouses, our couples, our families, a man and a woman, embrace collaboration over competition. It's not about who bought that land or who bought that one. It's not about winning the argument. Circling back to Stephen Covey, have a win-win situation. You don't have to win the argument all the time, because when egos come into play, then you cross the line and you end up having bitterness, resentment, and divorce. It's not so far. So decide to have one bank account, have all your resources together. I mean, do something that helps you move forward together, running together on the same direction and not one running opposite direction at a very high speed. So spousal competition is real and we need to shun it. But as long as it's creating banter and helping you have a growth mentality, oh, your husband is going for a master's degree, oh, I can also go for my master's. And then you come and celebrate one another. And if one does a bash for the other one, I can also do a bash for you to celebrate your birthday. That is healthy spousal competition. And moving on swiftly to gender competition. The world, as it were, we have come from the history where a man had to go and hunt and get the gazelle, get the goat, bring it back home for the wife or the woman to go to the kitchen and prepare it and cook, and also prepare the kids, shower them and put them to bed. And of course the man would wait for more rights later on. And There's another discussion where, who should initiate sex. That's another competition. I think we should all be equal. Everybody should be able to initiate that. But going back to gender roles, in the spirit of Beijing, now that our women have gone to school, our man and a woman all go to work, we are all hunting for jobs on LinkedIn. How do we make sure that we are not competitive but collaborative? When we get back home, who will go to the kitchen to cook because you're all back at home at 5 p.m.? So we have been told that the man needs to sit down and wait for the woman to cook, but things are changing. So are we ready to embrace one another and pivot? We are no longer being defined by how much muscle we have or how much money we bring at home. The man in this modern age is being defined by what God wants you to do. Of course, you are a leader, and the lady is also a leader in her own right. A man wants to be respected. A woman wants love and affection. Are we investing enough time to understand why a man behaves the way he does and why a woman behaves the way she does? Because we have seen divorce on the rise. We are seeing a lot of gender competition, and yet we need to be embracing gender equity. Where there are more men than women, then we need to ring fence positions for women. And the vice versa is also true. We need to have positions for men and women, either in parliament or in local committees where we are finding one is more than the other. Case in point, I work very closely with communities, and I've seen in community health committees, we find there are more men than women. So it will be important to bring more women on the decision-making organ. But also we are seeing that there are more women going for masters, going for PhDs. Women are going to school because men are so busy looking for money to take care of their families. So how can we incentivize more men to go back to school and supplement what they're doing? So we should not be saying, oh, it is a man to do this or a man to do that. Of course, we have some inherent things that we want to carry over. For example, I want to believe chivalry is something we would want to keep, that a man should open the door for you. A woman should not be opening the door for herself, I believe. We should lock the house or the gate at night when you're going to sleep. Should a man do that or a woman do that? Of course, that is debatable depending on your culture. But I'm saying we have gender competition, and it's high time we also embrace oneness and collectiveness and understand the emotional intelligence of a man and a woman so that we can reduce the competition and see you are in this together. Same in the workplace. Let us have equity and embrace one another. I want to move forward to another type of competition that is very much common, and this is political competition. And in this country, we have had a lot of political ideas, and once upon a time, one of the political analysts was saying that politics should be a game for competition of ideas, and it is not a beauty contest. I don't need to put names here. But again, when you look at healthy political competition, sometimes it gets toxic. And what we saw in Kenya in 2007, every election cycle, we have taken this competition too far. How do we ensure that we stick to the competition of ideas and not profiling one another based on where you come from, not looking at ethnic balkanization or saying that some people are doing better than others? We have these stereotypes that profile the people from the Mount Kenya region as good businessmen and the people from the Western region as good academicians. Those are very good for banter. And I think we should be learning from each other. If those guys have one professor every 1 meter, and then you go to Mount Kenya, you have got one entrepreneur every other meter you walk, then we can gel and learn from one another as opposed to ethnic balkanization. So I've seen political competition has led this country to lose a lot of money. And that is not the way we want to go. It is high time we embrace one another have competition of ideas, strategies, opinions, suggestions, as opposed to I am better than you, our community is better than yours, we are smarter, better, wiser than you guys are slow, you guys are fast. We need to shun that and appreciate the strengths of each community. And this starts from the household, the school, the neighbor, the community, the office in the corporate sector, and in the political realm. We need to embrace oneness. We keep the healthy competition, and when you cross over the line and it becomes toxic, when there are feelings of jealousy, bitterness, and unhealthy competition, then it's high time to stop. I want to end this conversation by shedding a spotlight on social media. Social media has heightened competition amongst friends, amongst colleagues. I am a very avid user of LinkedIn, Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, and all these social media mediums. And I have seen that when my friend posts, oh, they've built a house, or he's written a book, we all like and we celebrate, and that is good. And sometimes when you see one of your friends is doing so much, so good, sometimes you feel, hey, jamaa amekuja sana. It is high time you embrace that person and even call and appreciate them. One of the ways of killing unhealthy competition is intentionally complimenting someone. You need to take that phone call and call your classmate and tell them, congratulations for going for your PhD. Congratulations for your going for building a house for your parents. Congratulations for your promotion. Now you are a global individual, a global director, whatever it is that that person is doing. Write a message to them. And when you give a compliment, then you kill the spirit of competition, of negative competition, and then you enhance oneness and collective growth. By the time you feel you do not want to like that picture, you do not want to like that gold medal that his son got, or you do not want to like that, whatever it is, the best way to cure that is to celebrate that person. Because when we celebrate one another, we shall realize we have got space for everyone to grow. Mental health is important, and if we do not appreciate one another, then we shall start dying. Because the minute we stop talking, that's the minute we start dying. Competition is fire and fuel. It is a double-edged sword. Stay on the right side of competition. The healthy competition. Unhealthy competition leads you to a lot of distraction. You cannot even define contentment. You do not know how much money do you need to make for you to stop the wild goose chase, to stop the rat race. You need to define your goals. The best competition is one where you're competing against yourself, against your own set goals, where you're competing against the best version of yourself. If you were here last year, you're competing against what you were last year and moving on forward to bigger and better days. Last year, I was waking up at 5:30. This year, I've started waking up at 4 a.m. because I want to do better. I want to do more in my workplace, in my personal growth. And so I am not competing against anyone else, but I'm competing against myself. I have got my goals. And the minute you do not have your goals, that is the minute you start comparing yourself to your neighbor, to your classmate, to your brother, to your sister. And the minute you compare yourself, then you enter into the curse of comparison, as Robert Burale calls it. And when you compare yourself to your neighbor, to your colleague, you will not be able to appreciate them. So have your 5-year goals, write them down, have your focus. If you want to build a house in 10 years, then stick there. But if you want to build your house in 5 years, 1 year, stick there. Because you might find your friend who is well-oiled might even build their house in 2 months. So stick to your race. We are like these 5 fingers. We all have our race. We all have our abilities. So remember to stick to your race. Keep it here, keep it locked. We shall have our next conversation on what is toxic masculinity. Do not touch that dial. Thank you. Afya 360.